Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are live. Welcome to the light room, okay? Welcome to the light room to the, there we go, to the licensed professional counselor, the viral capacity expert, the RaQuel, okay? Let's get that right. The RaQuel Hopkins, okay? I am absolutely elated that you were able to say yes to be in this space, and we're happy to have you here. So welcome to the light room.
Thank you. I am happy to hear you. You caught me at a good time. See, she's smart, y'all. She caught me on TikTok where there wasn't a lot of action. Hey, mama, I see your mama here.
That's it.
Um, so I'm happy to be here.
That's it.
And I look forward to the conversation.
Amen. Well, I'm definitely happy to have you here. And so y'all know how we do it in the light room. Well, I guess she already kind of mentioned it. I'll tell you how I met the guests and then I allow them to introduce themselves. You've seen it, right? If you're on TikTok, you're on Instagram, you have seen this space. You have heard this wisdom. But tonight, you get to hear it inside of the light room. So again, drop your comments, drop your questions, and let's talk about it. So like she said, I met her on TikTok. I wish I remembered the first video, but whatever it was, I was like, hold on, who is this? Because that's what I'm saying right there. Like what she's saying is what I'm saying. So keep saying what you're saying. And next thing I know, like all over TikTok, all over Instagram. And then she migrated over to Facebook. I said, oh, my people on Facebook now know who she is. They're sharing her post. Okay, so let's get her over here to the light room. And we were having a conversation. It was on a Saturday because I was at my uncle's house. And I was like, you done talk to her and we done had a conversation, kind of getting to know each other. But baby, you ain't invited her to the light room. I said, let me go back. I said, hey girl, I done did all this talking, but what I have not done was invited you into the light room. So I sent the invite and she accepted. And so here we are. So that's how I know her. And now I'll let her introduce herself.
Oh, I think you did good. So, RaQuel Hopkins, I'm a licensed professional counselor. I refer to myself as a capacity expert, and I create a lot of content on social media. I started it just to share. Felt like I had a different way of approaching mental health that's not necessarily mainstream. And baby, it took off, and here we are now.
Here we are now. It definitely took off. And you know what? It deserved to take off because it's the refreshing voice that we needed to hear. And not just that, it's the wisdom, right? Resilience, you got to have resilience if you're going to live this life. Black, white, Puerto Rican, Asian, any otherwise. It's gonna require some level of resilience to get through this life. And so even when I think back of why Mental Health Mondays was even created, it was in response to an unfortunate death by suicide. And so you just see social media became that place where people share their thoughts, share their feelings and their emotions. And there's a lot of information out there. And so the goal for me was, after a couple of episodes, it's like, I don't want to just talk about it because I don't want us to get stuck in it either, right? You can easily get stuck in that loop of talking about what happened to me, why I can't do this because of what happened to me. And so that's how we came to the space of educate, empower, and equip, because the goal is to come out of the darkness into the light with that. Okay. With that.
Educate, empower, and equip. I like that. I like
Thank
that.
you. Yeah. And so again, we don't want it the roundabout conversation because there's no movement, right? You're not living life. You're just existing. And then the whole survival mode that we talk about. And I use my quoted fingers because, my first question will be as such. And I took notes.
Okay, I'm ready.
I took notes. So if y'all see me
I am ready. I'm all yours tonight. And what is the green light room?
The light room.
The light room. Okay. I'm all yours in the light rooms tonight. So whatever questions you got for me, I am here.
Listen, y'all. Y'all better get in here. Y'all better get in this space, okay? I'm telling you. But I'm gonna start the conversation with my questions. And I was on your TikTok, like I said, I had to go in there and grab because I wanted to maximize this moment, and I want this moment to speak to that last E as a value system for what we do over here is equip. And you hear the language people are saying, people are actually diagnosing themselves and each other, right? You're out here writing therapy notes and have never gone to school to be a therapist. And so you've mentioned that mental health conversations, which were supposed to help us grow, are now being weaponized. What are some examples of how this shows up in everyday life or online spaces?
So let me just start by prefacing, because my videos are short, right? It doesn't give you my entire thought process. I don't know that it's being done intentional, right? I think that there was a need. There was a need for people to seek support, to destigmatize not mental health, because that don't make any sense to destigmatize mental health, because we all have mental health. But there was a need to destigmatize struggle, life being hard. There was a need to destigmatize people that actually live with mental illnesses, right? So I think that getting the awareness about there, like it's okay to struggle. Struggle doesn't mean that you're failing. Seek support, talk to a professional. They can help you navigate whatever your challenges are. That was done very well, right? Because people are more open and they're more receptive to seeking support. Now, when it comes to like these diagnoses, because I say that the diagnoses have now turned into people's personalities, and people like introduce themselves, like their handles on Instagram refers to their self-diagnosis or diagnosis that they're receiving from professionals. And what ends up happening is the diagnoses are becoming more of like the main character in people's identity, and people are getting trapped in their pain and their story and not creating the space for them to actually grow. Whether it's I live with ADHD, I have ADD, whatever, OCD, like you name it, right? You're seeing it everywhere. So I think that's one. Mark, I don't even remember the question. I didn't forgot the question already because I
But
was
you're
getting ready to go off on a tangent. That's why I do those little short videos.
it's easy to get down in that thing now. It's easy
Oh,
to get
yeah,
down in
because
there.
I was getting ready to go on a full tangent. Bring me back before I
And
lose
just
it again.
some of the ways that we see it showing up, that instead of what it was intended to be, how it's being weaponized. And you were actually heading that way, right? People put
Oh,
it in their
okay,
handle,
okay. So it's
identifying by
not
the
being
diagnosis.
used for understanding, right? Like if you were to get a diagnosis, is or not even just a diagnosis, right? Let's just say if you're going to talk about your childhood, your past, and just trying to understand how some things may have shaped you unconsciously. What people do now is rather than using it for understanding, a tool for just understanding yourself better, what we do now is we cling tightly to it. And I think in a lot of ways it creates a sense of community for people, and identity is also currency. So the more things that you have to describe or convey who you are, it's easy to attach yourselves to those things without realizing that you may actually be stunning your growth as well. So um I see a lot of that, right? And I think it's because we have normalized mental health, which is great. Um but I mean, I've grown up how I grew up, and probably you too, and your mama would probably say it too. Like, that's why we had to destigmatize mental health, because people didn't want labels. And now it's like normalized to actually want a label. But the problem with that is when you see people that actually live with severe mental illnesses, they don't want the label. And that's the
Right.
difference, right? And I think that because of the awareness around mental health, there's a lack of awareness around people that are actually living with real mental illnesses too,
Wow.
because they get overlooked. And not to say that ADHD and those things are not real, because they do change the way that you may engage and navigate life. But people that are living with bipolar, schizophrenia, like they don't want those labels.
Wow.
So, mm,
Well, you that definitely answered the question, right? Because that's what's happening, and I don't profiting off your pain, and that's what capitalism, that's what the industry, that's what all these things are. Seeing a
so
moment, you want to buy a
fears,
T-shirt. Say it again.
a fear tactic almost.
Mm-hmm.
Like nobody wants to be left behind. It's the infamous FOMO. Like, seek support, hurry up, get support, stay in therapy. Like, this is what you need to do for your mental health. guess where I get stuck at though, Marquita, is I'm like, was it intentional or this is just the way that it has happened? That's where I'm like, think it was I don't think it was intentional. I don't even know that other professionals even realize that they've gotten caught up in it either. Because I just don't see professionals coming into this space to like gaslight people, because that's in essence that's what it to some degree it could be. People get into this profession because they truly want to help people. So I just think that it's just we now have access to social media and people have taken it and they ran with that. And I also think that there are a lot of professionals that are not willing to say some of the things that I'm saying because of fear of how other people may receive it, and or they don't want to put their licenses on the line, right? Because it can be very controversial too.
Man, it could be a sticky situation. It could be a catch-22 sometimes, especially when you're having in such a broad open space like social media where everybody's voice is out there. And sometimes, that's the hard part about social media, right? You cannot look at it, you can scroll past it, but once you see it, you can't unsee what you saw. And sometimes people some thoughts really should be left in some people's head. I have to refrain myself, like, just even as a professional, to realize, number one, I don't know these people. Sometimes it's bots, sometimes it's people who, whatever the case may be, but just some things that are said, we just have to be careful. And so because it's so loud out there, those of us who are professionals at our capacity in this space, we do have to be careful and we have to be very intentional, right? And for those that are seeking support and seeking services, one of my goals as well is to teach you how to do that, how to navigate that part. Because for our community and culture, therapy is not something that we've always done, right? And so adjusting yourself to even allow somebody to sit with your thoughts with you, to allow you to say what you really think, what you really feel, and help you break that open so that you can continue to live a healthier life. So, I don't want the loud parts to drown out the quiet parts, which is where you really get what you need in the quiet parts. And so, and with that, the whole trauma, trauma, trigger, all the things have become, very loud words. That's the word I'm going to say, is they have become very loud words. But then, in some of your content, you mentioned discomfort. Sometimes it's not trauma, it's discomfort. And with the conversation we just had, sometimes I don't know if people, how are we distinguishing whether it's discomfort or trauma? Because as of right now, it all looks the same for some people.
Yeah, the overuse of, and in a perfect world, the terminology would be reserved for professionals, but I don't even know if you would need to use it, right? Because if I get a client, for example, I can listen to what you're saying without saying that I think you were traumatized, because your language, your behavior, all of those things are going to tell me that we may be dealing with someone that has experienced something traumatic. And I think of trauma as something that destabilizes you, meaning that it alters the way that you think, feel, function, and show up in the world. But there's also a such thing as post-traumatic growth disorder, right? So this idea that you can actually grow through trauma is also very real, which is where people feel like, I appreciate how I grew up. I appreciate the struggle. Because of the struggle, it's made me this person, that person. And I think that we don't realize that so much of life is always and will always be shaping us. Some things we may not respond to very well because we just don't have the tools and or resources to do so. But once you get access to those things, like, it has the ability to change. I think the biggest misconception when we're talking about trauma is your perception, and that's really hard for people to accept, because there's a sense of like radical responsibility. Like, you choose to see it this way. This is the way that you're choosing to see your situation. And based off of that, this is the reaction or the response that you continue to get. And I always say that there's objective versus subjective trauma, right? When I think of objective trauma, it's the things that you could put all of us in a room right now, and all of us would say, okay, what do you think about molestation? All of us was trauma, like it's traumatic. What do you think about the recent LA fires? Traumatic. What do you think about abuse? Right? Traumatic. Like those are the things that we don't have to think twice about. Right. And then there are other things where you're like, okay, you grew up poor. You didn't grow up with much. Like, what would you consider that? For some people, that's not traumatic, right? Because you could say, well, we didn't have a lot. Like my mom showed us a lot of love. Like I saw her work, which is why they say that you can grow up in the same household and have different perspectives. And that's where the trauma piece comes in at, because and that's why I say it's important for people to understand that it is subjective, and it's not to take anything away from a person that ends up perceiving their situations as traumatic. It is to allow people to start questioning, okay, am I labeling life itself as traumatic? Because if you do that, you start to rob yourself of the ability to actually navigate life. And that's why I talk about so much about we have really started pathologizing like normal things in life. Like you're gonna deal with like people that suck. You're gonna deal with a bad boss at some point. Yeah. So when I think about normal life challenges, I think about the things that we would not consider abnormal. Like it's not abnormal to kiss a few frogs in a relationship, right? Like they don't always work out. That doesn't mean that it was traumatic. It just means it just didn't work out for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I mean, to get laid off, that's not abnormal either, given the world that we live in. However, when you talk about your back could be against the wall, depending on how you do with your finances, your sense of security and all those things are have been shaken up, that could end up being traumatic, right? Because I think about traumatic, something being traumatic, you really feel like your backup is against the wall. You have no way out. It creates a sense of helplessness and hopelessness for a person. So, and just some of the other things like, I don't know, not enjoying your job, not liking where you work, like those things are normal. Like friendships ending, like that's normal. It's not abnormal. It's not abnormal for you to experience pain. It's not abnormal for you to experience some level of discomfort throughout your life. And I think that people have gotten really smart about their pain, like to where they can articulate their pain in a way to where it's like, oh, don't challenge me on my pain because you don't know what I've been through. Well, we all have been through something, because no one is exempt from adversity. Like the only way that we can truly grow as humans is to have adversity. Like we grow through challenges. We don't grow through being able to sit down and smell roses all day. Like you grow through the things that you actually go through. And when you realize that, you realize like no one gets through life unscathed. No one whatsoever.
Nope. Man. To that.
I told you I could go on a tangent now because I really, really love this stuff, which is why I do those bite-sized videos, because if not, y'all be like, what in the heck is she talking about? Like she done went from here to here to here to here. So that's me like managing myself so that I can like, all right, I just want to focus on this. This is what I want the people to get from this. And then I do another video, because if not, girl, I'll go all over the place.
Trust me, I understand. I have one friend, she is the ear, she hears it all from top to bottom, sideways, because like you said, when you get into it, it can really go. But thank you for sharing it. And I just like the way you talked about like trauma for what it really is. And then, and it didn't even take a lot to say what discomfort was. And somehow, somewhere, the discomforts have really, started to get labeled as trauma. And we have to create.
And they may be, right? But this idea that it stays traumatic forever is not necessarily true. Because if you're caught off guard, for example, LA fires, it could be. Somebody else may say this is a perfect opportunity. I've been looking to leave LA for a long time, so I'm gonna go ahead and move down to Houston. I don't know. The housing market is a lot cheaper. I mean, you just don't know. But this idea, once you've experienced trauma, that it stays trauma forever is not necessarily true because it's subjective.
So with that, with therapy, right? There are some people who will go, who won't go. When do when you invite people into the therapeutic space, right? After they've had a traumatic or even a discomforting experience, like how do we navigate or hold space for those who are maybe not ready to go to therapy, or just navigate those who need it but not sure how to get to it?
Ask me that question again. Like, so are you? Ask me that question again. I want to make sure I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. With that, people going to therapy, like some people don't know when they experience have these traumatic experiences, right? And so knowing whether it's discomfort or trauma, just learning to deal with whatever it is, how are we navigating them to the therapeutic space, right?
So I think that's tricky, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's tricky because we've also sent the message that the only way to actually grow through anything is through therapy. And I don't believe that that's actually true. I think that we grow through a lot of things. Like, your growth doesn't happen in a therapy room. It gives you the space, a safe space, right? To talk about whatever it is that you're experiencing, but you actually grow in the streets. It's what I tell people all the time. Like, the work really happens, what you take from therapy and you apply it outside. So I would say, like, because you've gone through something traumatic doesn't necessarily mean that it needs to be resolved through therapy. Now, could therapy definitely be beneficial to you if you've been through some tough things as a reminder that you don't have to do life alone? But there are some people, they do have supportive family members. There are some people that have close-knit communities that help them navigate stuff. So this idea that you actually need a professional is not always true. I would say, if you're hesitant to seeking support in general within the community that you have, or you don't have community, or you just think that there's something wrong with needing to see a therapist, that becomes more of the issue than anything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's what I wanted you to say out loud. Like, for those who was like, well, I don't need therapy, or what therapy's for, and if I need it or don't need it, just knowing, how to identify what the need is and then navigating toward that need as well.
Because I think that creates shame.
Shame.
Yeah. I got a video that I'm doing, and I talk about where now I've been guilty of it too. Like, when some folks be getting on my nerve, like, you need therapy. And it is that does not mean that, like, therapy's going to change them. Sometimes it's just that I don't know how to navigate what's right in front of me. So I think that the default, and it's shade. Like, not only is it shade, but it's also saying that something wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with me. It's like a power move to say that, like, I'm good, you need help. In essence, what I'm saying is, you crazy, you need to go and get some help. And it's the worst thing that you can do if the goal is truly supporting mental health and creating mental health awareness, is to tell people you need therapy. Because if you tell me that I need therapy, I'm probably going to shut down and be like, what you think wrong with me? Like, you think I'm crazy? What makes you think that you're better than me? So I was thinking about that the other day, and I even convicted myself. I was like, I don't even want to have those thoughts when I'm talking. I'm like, you need therapy.
Because it'll come up and it'll come out. There are some situations that's tough, and I don't know what to do with it. So I'm just send you up there.
You know what I hear people say, you need therapy. What I hear is, be blessed. That's what I hear. Like, I hear, be blessed. And we know that's not coming from a place of love.
That's, you better go on before we have to get on down.
Yeah.
So, relationship talk, right? When you think about capacity, let's go there, right? Because you come on yourself as the capacity expert. Like for those who have not seen you before or not even clear because you do snippets, explain to us, what does that even mean? What does that even look like?
So capacity is, I always tell people, is less about how you do anything in life and more about who you become to handle life. And the who component is recognizing that we never stop growing, evolving, and developing. The minute that life starts to feel easy, life will present another challenge within your forefront, and now you have to decide, like, am I going to lean more into this, or am I going to pull out and start to retreat? So capacity is more about, like, who do I need to become? Who do you need to become if you decide that you want to be in a relationship, if you decide that you want to have children, if you decide that you want to do be an entrepreneur? And I don't think that we think about those things. Oftentimes we accept a lot of demands, but we don't know what is actually demanded of us. And I rooted in order to develop your capacity, the baseline for me is you have to be okay with change, discomfort, uncertainty, because those things are bound to happen. Like, no, uncertainty, like, it's inevitable. Change, it's inevitable. Discomfort is inevitable. We know that because, I mean, some will say that the cost for a meaningful life is discomfort. So when I am talking about capacity, it's like this continuous process of evolving and leveling up so that you can ultimately live the life that you want to live. I always say that the end goal is to look back over your life one day and say, did I have any regrets? Do you feel a sense of integrity based off of the life that you lived, all of the roles that you had, whether it's a friend, sister, daughter, mom, father, like whatever it is, because we carry a lot of roles in general by default, oftentimes not even knowing what those roles are. So I like to take my clients through understanding, like, what life roles are you currently carrying right now? Because when you just start taking on and you don't realize what you're actually carrying, you don't create space for you to learn how to carry those things differently. And that is what capacity is about. It's not about what you carry, it's learning to carry those things differently so that you can show up for yourself. And in the process, when you show up for yourself, you can show up for all of the other things that matter, that matters as well. And the foundation of that, I mean, it's rooted in everything. Like, my clients would tell you, like, one day we could be talking about self-trust. One day we could be talking about, you're not okay with discomfort. So it just really depends. One day we could be talking about, let's pay attention to how you're actually responding to changes. Like, someone canceled something on your calendar and you're upset now that you could have had something else there. So it just all depends. So I am paying attention. So the other thing is, I have a background in HR too. So HR coaching and mental health professional. So I always tell people that when people work with me, I am looking at you from a very holistic perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're looking at the personal you and the professional to you, because those are not two separate worlds. All of those things start to combine together. When I think about how I live my life, I have a full-time job in HR right now. I have my coaching business. I'm a content creator now. I'm a mom of two. I'm a 10-year-old, 2-year-old. I have a husband. I got soccer. I mean, I'm a friend. Like, I got all of the things going on. And that's how I choose to express who I am. So less about the roles that I carry and more about how I want to express who I am throughout the world. And that goes back to that sense of integrity that I want to have, like my legacy, my impact. I don't know what that will look like, but I do know that I'm willing to expand my capacity and become who and what is needed in order to feel like I gave life its all and I wasn't at the effect of what's happening outside of me.
Wow. Wow. Taking agency and taking ownership of what your life looks like, essentially. in spite of, or regardless to, or whatever the case may be, you still have a choice, especially if you survive whatever situation you overcome or come through, or even the one that you're in. It really is about perspective. You know what I'm saying? How you are viewing this situation, and then what you're going to do once the situation is over with. So I like that. I like that you're bringing people to the space of saying that I can decide what my life looks like. And so just for me personally, coming to the other side, because I've had my own challenges, I've had my own experiences. And when I look back on that side, I was taking on things that I did not have the capacity for, did not create space for, just saying yes all the time. And then it becomes overwhelmed, burnout. Now you mad at everybody else, but you really could have said no. You literally could have
said no. Right. And I think that that's true. That's normal, right? Because how do we figure out who we are, what it is that matters to us, what it is that we value? I think that so many people, like I love the example that you just gave, right? Because you end up mad at the world because you didn't realize that you were not exercising your choice to say no. You've always had that choice available, but you had to probably go through those things to figure out what it is that I value and where and how I would like to prioritize my time. There's no reason to create a sense of resentment there. Like, I always go back to, how else do we grow if we don't get the challenges that question and ask us, who are you and what is it that you want for your life? Like, I don't know how you would grow. I just don't. Like, it makes absolutely no sense to me.
You won't. And that's how you end up in victimhood. That's how you remain in oppressive states, and that's how you remain in places that you don't want to be. Like you said, in your professional life, in your personal life. Where I am now professionally, this is the life I chose. Like, this is the career path I chose. This is where I put the work in it, and I'm here. And so now, when they did a feature on me, I forgot what the question was, but I ended up having to say, this space has caused me to hone in my skills, has caused me to expand and grow and become better. And I appreciate that. Right. Because you don't get to ask to be at the top of things in life and to have all these things without shedding some skin and cutting off some layers and chiseling so you can get the result that you want. You gotta, give up some stuff, get some stuff. It's ins and out. What they call it, the ebbs and flows. And I like the diagram about success. It's never like this. It's all the different ways. So,
and I think that the more that you become or develop your capacity, as I often talk about, you realize that, because I'll be honest, I don't know if it's just a me. I mean, I don't think it's a me, because I help other people navigate it in the same way, but it's not so much that life becomes easier. You become better at navigating life. Because you said earlier, like, perspectives, and I want to go back to that, because I think that that's what therapy does. It gets people at, like, coping. People are able to walk away and have these perspectives, being able to find the silver lining. And I think that that's great. But I think that for the world that we live in today, with so much access to information, there has to be this inner knowing that extends beyond just coping, because you can't rationalize yourself out of a life that feels stuck. You can't rationalize yourself out of being a woman. You can't rationalize yourself out of being a Black woman, right? There's going to have to be some deep-rooted belief about self that encourages you to go to a higher level, to where you're no longer questioning your self-worth. You're no longer questioning whether you belong in the room. You're no longer questioning whether you trust yourself anymore. So I am not a fan of the whole, like, if I have to get you to coping, great, but I'm not a fan. I want to challenge your coping skills, because the minute that life hits, or the minute that life reminds you that you're a woman, or you're a Black woman, or whatever it may be, right? You're back to retreating again and falling right back into victimhood again. So I'm very mindful. That's why I say I stay away from labels. Even, like, I know what it means to be a woman. I know what it means to be a Black person, or what people tell us it means, right? I don't need a professional reminding me of the oppressive states that you can fall victim to. I need you to support me in elevating beyond that. So I'm not a fan of that. Let me grab my charge.
Man, that is so true. That is so good. And that's how we, again, come up out of those places. And you're so right. This place in life has definitely called me to a space, or I got to know that I know what I know. And so I tell people, when I say I know, I know. I don't care what's going on out here. I don't care what's going on out there. When I know for sure what happens on the inside of here, you can believe it or not, you can accept it or not. It is what it is for me. I don't argue about who I am, what I do, what I have to give. Either you want to partake or you do not. That does not change what I get to bring to the table. And I told a young man this today, whether you have $2 or $2 million, you be who you are. You be who you're supposed to be. Because if you're going to wait till you get $2 million to be, then I don't trust you. And if somebody's going to wait till you get $2 million to be with you, don't trust them.
Mm-hmm.
Don't trust them. So, and then again, when you think about relationships, a lot of times we're not working on the inner relationships. I was telling my friend over the weekend, like when we was recapping from the weekend, when you think about marriages and relationships, a lot of times, especially women, you go in it for, well, this is what I want. I want you to do this for me. I want you to take care of me. I want you to give me this. I want you to give me that. And I'm a boy mom. And so I get to see things from a whole different perspective, right? And so I don't know. Sometimes there's this notion. I don't like to generalize, but
how old is your boy? Or you have boys or boy or one boy?
Yeah, he's
how
23.
Old? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, I'm a boy
So
mom too, but mine are young. I have a 10-year-old and a 2-year-old. So
yeah, no, he's good in an adult. But you get to see it from a different perspective about what relationships should be. And servitude is what it is. If I go in that relationship looking to serve you and you go in it looking to serve me, we both win. We both get what we need. And I think a lot of the traumatic relationship endings and experiences come from everybody wanting what they want versus sharing space with each other.
Yeah, there's a sense of entitlement. It's the mentality that I deserve. And I done had my fair share of I deserve what I expect from you, but it's exactly what you're saying, right? You do have to come from a place of servitude, because when you do come from that place, it does create those win-win scenarios. But we talk about a lot of the language today, right? When people are talking about protect your peace, protect your mental health, people can't even begin to get to that point because there's a level of discomfort. There's a level of uncertainty, meaning like, do I know that this is going to work out? So people are constantly seeing a lot of red flags before you can even build anything meaningful these days.
Red flags before you could build anything meaningful. Now I want. My first thought was like, what I really want to ask, like, how do we address like with growth? And I'm not saying like give into red flags and accept the red flags, turn them purple, but I'm just saying, how do we not continue to dismiss people because it's uncomfortable? You know what I'm saying? To getting to a space where we know how to share space, bring you to accountability, awareness and accountability so that it serves everybody.
I think that the one thing that usually stands in our way is judgment. I think that we make ourselves more superior than what other people I always tell people, like, can you see yourself in other people? And if you can't see yourself in other people, then maybe you have a problem. But if you can see like how a person could do that, how they could be thinking about, that's the empathy, right? Really placing myself in your shoes. It's maybe you start to create space to actually be in relationship with people. But I think judgment stands in the way, right? Not only do you have judgment, but we also have all of these conversations around mental health about you don't have time to be wasting time. Like there's this idea that you marry right. Like I didn't marry right. I did the work. Like we done the work. There's no such thing as marrying right, and there's no such thing as marrying wrong, especially if you're going to learn a lesson. And I think that the conversations around mental health, they lack, not mental health, around relationships and mental health too. They lack substance and depth. Now, what I'm not saying is, because I saw this on social media, like, do you stay in an abusive relationship? No, why not?
No.
I ain't gonna tell nobody to stay in no abusive relationship.
Right.
Now, I think where it gets tricky is the emotional component, right? A lot of people don't know how to sit with their own emotions. So we tend to weaponize it, or we externalize like, oh, well, I feel this way because of you. I feel this way, or you said this and it made me feel. that's difficult to do because we place the ownership outside a lot versus internally and figuring out what our values are. And I think that whenever we're talking about a relationship, oftentimes we want something from other people that we haven't figured out how to truly give ourselves. And
we're honest.
That's a forever journey. Like you may have some bumps and some humps before you figure out how to give yourself all of the needs, because whether in a relationship or marriage, it still doesn't stop and or change that people have their own journeys. Like, and their journeys, you may end up being a victim or villain of someone else's story, but it doesn't mean that it's always personal. And I think
Right.
that's the piece that we end up missing. Because I say I do or I decide to commit to you, that doesn't change that life has set me up in a certain way to grow. And in order for me to do that, it may be at the expense of what you think that we're building. And that's not always toxic, in my opinion.
Yeah. Man. That's
That's
true.
a
And that,
lot to unpack. Like it's a lot of like, yeah.
but well, and I get it, right? My last relationship was very short lived, but when I tell you, it was probably one of the most impactful and powerful ones that I went through. And I wanted to be so mad at the brother, but I could not, right? I could not, because of the lessons and the well being that I got out of it for me. It wasn't about him. I still had to live with me past that relationship and past, you know, the meeting and all of that. I took what was good for it. It ended. It ended. I got no blessings or curses for his life. We move on to the next, because I'm sure there, like you said, there was somebody who probably thought what I thought with him, and they thought that about me and them. You know what I'm saying? You keep on until you get to where you're supposed to be, and just along the way, you know, the moment you become more aware and you understand what's happening, just the intentionality. There are some people who would deliberately and intentionally cause pain and harm to people. Those are the ones you stay away from, right? But when it's part of the journey, part of the process, because it made you cry. I cried 3 days, baby, like Jesus, 3 days, and then I got up. But because it made you cry, because it made you sad, like loss is like that. And you know, when you lose relationship, it's just like any other death. You mourn the loss of either, and that was the thing for me. I mourn the loss of what I thought it would be more so than him, because it was it was a very short situation. So I really couldn't even be mad at the brother, because quite honestly, we know each other long enough to be all that. So and that has helped me not to go out into the dating scene thinking all men ain't this and can't trust. Like, no, that was my experience with him.
Right. And I love that you say that, because there's a such thing as speaking from my pain and speaking from my growth. And it's exactly what you're saying. You could have walked away and was like, all men are the same. Like it's just not gonna, it's not gonna work out. I need to be cautious, or say I can still be cautious, but I'm gonna keep myself open to the process of dating. And that's the difference. So it certainly sounds like you were ready for a relationship, and like you said, you were mourning the loss of what it could have been. And I think that those things are normal, to to feel that way.
Absolutely. And getting to that place, because I remember the younger me, the back in the day me, the not this me. I wouldn't have said it out loud because I've never been that person, but I definitely would have internalized it. I would have thought something was wrong with me and it was about me. The brother made a decision, respect his decision, move on, go about life. Because I told another young lady this: you don't ever want to be with somebody who doesn't want to be with you. If I got to convince you, force you, bribe you, teach you, coach you into being my man, then I'll spend the rest of our relationship doing that. And I don't deserve that, right? I don't deserve that. So I don't have the capacity to do such things.
I'm not willing to become that person that you want me to become in order to be in this relationship. That's okay, because you're taking ownership. You're not saying that I'm not going to be sitting here raising you and doing all that. You're saying I don't have the capacity to be the person that this person is needing me to be. I think that that's just so much more freeing. Like it provides like a sense of liberation that I'm taking ownership. I'm not making no one else the villain of my story. And I think that radical responsibility is hard. Like, Radical responsibility is really hard. Radical responsibility and radical acceptance is really, really hard.
It is. But that gets you to that place where, again, you can live free, being free in your mind, having that peace in your mind. And then, too, that
Your
authority.
heart, too. Because
Yeah,
what flows out of your heart, too. I think that people miss that often. Like, what flows out of your heart is a big deal.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Because that's how we learn what you're saying out of your mouth. We know what's in your heart. Like you said,
Yeah,
it
what
don't
you
take
said out of
long.
your mouth, we know it's resentment, it's
Yeah.
hard, it's anger, it's envy, it's all of the things. Like, yeah, you're right about that.
It's gonna
You're
come out
right
your
about
mouth. The
that.
issue's gonna flow right out of your mouth. And so again, I
Hmm.
know for me, I'm very intentional about the hard work, the heart space. Even being in this space, I pray often, daily. Because when you hear a lot of stuff, it's easy to to shut down or close off. Because it can be tough, but I don't want that. I love people. And I've said this from the day I started these lives to this day. I love people. I appreciate people. I'm at the most opportune time of seeing how God works when I'm around people. Because he's gonna work through me, through them, whatever the case may be. Like it's this expansiveness of God for me when it comes to
Hmm.
people. And so I had to be very mindful with certain experiences not to let that take that from me. Because that's mine.
Yep.
If somebody does wrong, then I say that was you. But to let you do wrong and then I totally dismiss myself from people, nah, we're not gonna do that. We're not going to do that. So yeah, I listen, girl. I fought real hard. Shout out to my therapist. I fought real hard to get here, and then even knowing what some of these things look like too. I think sometimes a lot of the problem is we don't know what we're dealing with, so you stay in it or you go around circles in it because you don't even know what it is. I can't call it out if I don't know what it is. I can't get over it or address it if I don't know what it is. So I
What do you
know
mean when you say you fought really hard to get to this place?
to know that I have a choice because for so long I have lived in a space where I didn't think I had a choice. And so
Okay.
going to therapy, breaking down these different mental and emotional walls of how I got here and those moments of, oh, I didn't think about that. And that's what that was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but the
Okay.
biggest thing
Okay.
for me, I got a choice. I can say no. I can say yes. That was one of the most powerful revelations for me through my therapy journey. Realizing that
That's
I
awesome. It
really
sounds like you had a good therapist.
I did. Shout out to her. You know what? A couple of them, and I was saying that to my latest therapy, but I've had some along the way. It's been a journey. So I've had a couple of people that came into the space and poured in when they were there. So
That's awesome. That's
yeah,
awesome.
I'm all for it. And then again, like you said, that's the gym. I wrote that down from another one. Therapy is where you learn the techniques and the exercises, but then you got to go outside and put that real work in. You got
Yeah,
to go outside and
you
put that
got to
real work
exercise outside.
in. Hmm.
Yeah, you have to exercise outside.
Yeah, and that's why I don't. There are moments where you are separated so that you can get to your next level, but to intentionally isolate yourself from people because you don't want to deal with the discomfort of you have a difference of opinion or
And most people will
people in
not
it.
admit to that they don't want to deal with the discomfort. Um, Most people would say that it's toxicity, it's draining. Like they're not gonna call it um discomfort. And
Mhm.
I mean, a lot of behaviors that we see today, it's self-care dressed up in avoidance, is what I say. Like, a lot of people's self-care work is a lot of avoiding. And I think I think that it's dangerous long term. And I think that it's dangerous long term because when you think about, and like research will tell you this, I don't usually pull out research, but when you think about like how people end up with like dementia, Alzheimer's, like over time, it's because things change. You think about like people that get older people when they get placed in nursing homes, or their environment changes, like you see an instant decline, and it's because you don't move the way that you used to. So I think that isolation works the same way today, even if you are just within your community. Like, you have to have things that are challenging. You can't have people that are always around saying yes, or no new friends. I'm protecting my peace. I got all these boundaries. Like, it's not conducive to your cognitive abilities over the long run. It's just like why we work out, right? We work out so that, and I like to think about it from this standpoint, like when you go to lift up kids, when you go to lift up anything in life, like when you go to reach up to grab something from out of a cabinet, like the work that you do in the gym, that translates over to those life skills, right? When you take a fall as you get older, like if you don't take care of your physical health, you're probably going to feel the effects of that fall because you don't necessarily move your body. And it's just like as you get older and you start to, because change is inevitable, right? If you are not exercising because you've decided to protect your peace and you protect your mental health, when life does hit hard and you haven't introduced your mind to different environments, it's going to hit you in ways that you probably couldn't even prepare for because that neuroplasticity has not been strengthened and or exercised.
Yep. Man.
So y'all can keep protecting y'all peace and y'all mental health. I'm telling you, it is not healthy or conducive long term. Like at some point, it will catch up with you.
Yeah, it will. Firm believer in that. Highly convinced. Man, what a good time, right? What a good time. You have did what you always do, right? In this social media space. And I have these questions, but like I said, the conversation flows how it flows, and everything that needs to be said will be said. And I think it was a really great conversation. And for those that are watching and those that will watch the replay, you got what you need. And man, listen, take agency over your life. You can decide if y'all have to
take agency.
Yeah.
Shout out to one more time, my please. Tell them take agency.
Shout out to Coach BJ. Yeah, man, Builder Nation. You know, we did a workshop 2 years ago now, and that was one of the things that he told us about taking agency and ownership. And like I said, that was the biggest light bulb for me, realizing that I can really choose how happy, sad, the things I want, I don't want. Like, it is my choice. And from that moment, listen, it's mine for the taking. So I appreciate you sharing space. Jay Brown says, great session, ladies. We'll love to collab for a panel. Him and his brother have a podcast. He's from my hometown. Shout out to Jay Brown.
What's your hometown?
Brother, Shaw, Mississippi.
Oh, okay.
Small town with a big welcome. That's what the sign says too. Small town with a big welcome. Yeah, he said, oh, this is much needed, especially in the Black community. Yeah, and again, even when I try to pull out because I'm thinking like, well, I've done what I came here to do, I run into somebody who still at baseline needs to hear, this information. And so we stay in the space and we get to that point where, again, we're building up our capacity. We're making space and we're taking agency and we're creating a life that we want, especially if you're a believer. That was the other thing for me. I'm not going to be a believer and then just living out here with the less than, stuck, oppressed, like none of that, depressed, none of that. So, and even with conditions and diagnosis, you still can have a treatment plan, right? Be it prayer and your medication, be it prayer and exercise, whatever the case may be. You have the tools that you need to take care of yourself. So with that, let me see if I can find a question that even still matter. So I like this one. What would you say to a person listening who feels seen by this conversation, but doesn't know what to do next?
That's a good question. I got to think. Let me think for a second.
She's thinking.
That feels seen,
but doesn't know what to do next.
I'm thinking about what we discussed. I would say if a person felt seen by the conversation that we're having, take a look or take inventory of the people within your community that either aligns with this way of thinking or not. That does not mean that you have to cut off your community, because we don't have to be equally yoked or thinking the same, because people are always offering a lot of different things, but expand your community to include all of the things that you feel like contribute to you as a person. And that could be other people that have just a different way of thinking, just in general. That does not mean that you need to cut anybody off because they ain't on your level, and that does not mean that.
Because they'll get rid
We
of some
have
friends,
different folks, different strokes, and that's okay.
That is okay. Yes, yes, yes. Now that's true
No
indeed.
judging.
Right. And you know what? I look more, I mean, I get it and I understand it and I absolutely agree with it. And so thank you for sharing. So if you felt seen in this conversation, look around, take inventory, begin to expand your capacity. But yeah, definitely. So I will give you back. Do you have, so how, is there anything that you're working on that people in this space can have access to, learn more about? Are you accepting new clients? Where can people support you, learn from you, work with you?
So I am not taking on any clients. So my coaching business. So I don't practice therapy. I think I was telling you in the beginning, but I never got into this space because I wanted to be a therapist. It was more of a complement to the work that I was already doing. But I do have my own coaching business, but my coaching business is referral based right now. And I mean, I'm good on that side right now. I am RaQuel, the capacity expert, on Instagram and on TikTok. Um, I go live. I try to go live at least once a week on Instagram. I'm trying to make my way back to TikTok because they've been getting on me. But in terms of working with me, I offer two different products right now. One is my digital course, Master the Art of a Thriving Adulthood, and that link is in my bio. And then I have a digital ebook that talks about expanding your capacity, and it explores your relationship with discomfort, change, uncertainty, because that's what I tell people. It's less about you exploring the relationships externally and outside of self, and more so exploring those internal relationships to support how you navigate the outside world. So I have that course. And the course is $147. And I meet actually with my community of course people every 2 weeks. So we just kind of all get together and we just talk about life or whatever questions that they may have. And then I have my ebook as well, and that's $27.
That's all right there. Listen, get on it, y'all. Get on it, especially, those that won't, aren't going to therapy right now or in the long run, whatever. And those that are, these are resources. These are tools. You have access to them. Advocate for your own mental health and those that you love and care about. Okay. You become well so you can show up well and all is well. Okay. So thank you.
I feel like I'm supposed to say amen after that.
I mean, I'm good in Baptist now, so I wouldn't deny it. I'm good in Baptist, so it would be very fitting if you did. But I do appreciate, again, you sharing space with us. We do not take it lightly when people come into the light room and share space and share with our community. The goal: educate, empower, and equip. We can have a better life. We can be better people, and we can enjoy. All right, wake up every day in peace of mind, peace of heart, and show up as our best self in the world. So tell your family I said thank you for allowing you to share space with us. And I will give you your time back for tonight.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. I enjoyed the conversation. And good luck to you with everything that you have going on and your rebranding for next year. And I'm sure you'll message me on TikTok.
Yes.
When you see a post that just captures your attention, and
Yeah.
TikTok ain't popping like that over there, so for sure I'll see it over there.
That's it. Good. Oh, that man, see how that worked. Strategic and intentional. That's good. Because that's where I saw it. I thought that was where it was happening. And I think
It
then
was. It started there, and then like Instagram just did its thing. So like TikTok, I can, when I open it up, actually, it's like I see those messages.
Mm-hmm.
I can see those. But you have my email address, so
That's it.
like my
Okay.
personal email address. So
That's it. Well, I appreciate it. Again, much success to you. Thank you for sharing space, and thank you for the gift of wisdom that you're sharing with the world, and those, you're helping build their capacity so they can live, a healthy, whole, blessed life. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Well, you have a good night.
All right. You too.
All right, Lightroom. That is, man. Thank you for checking in. I can't wait to watch the replay back, right? Just to see how this conversation went, how it flowed. I always like to show up. I try to prepare. I try to have notes, but that never works for me. Even when I'm speaking, right? I be trying to be prepared to have notes. That just doesn't work, because when it's in your heart, when it's in your space, you just got to let it flow out. And so we're both in this space talking about the things that we love and the thing that we know. So the conversation was good. Thank you to everybody that checked in.